What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Craftavore Tastes. I'm your host, Max. Wanted to preface this video by letting you know that this is going to be a little bit longer than what you guys might be used to on the channel. The reason being is because this video, I am debuting a new style of video that I'm going to do from time to time, and that's called the Brewery Spotlight. And really the purpose of, the Brewery Spotlight video is every now and then I'm going to want to do kind of a longer form video. I'm going to focus in on a particular brewery that maybe's made some, I don't know, news recently. Maybe they have recently launched a new line of beers. Maybe they have brought in a new brewer. Maybe they've moved. Maybe they've expanded. So the purpose is just to kind of, take a brewery that's maybe made some news that I found interesting and kind of do a little bit of a longer form video about them that might be able to, I don't know, review a couple of beers in their portfolio. So anyway, this is the debut of the Brewery Spotlight video on the Craftavore Tastes, and the brewery that we are going to be spotlighting today is Sixpoint Brewing at a Red Hook in Brooklyn, New York. And the reason why I chose Sixpoint to do this first brewery spotlight is because they have recently made some news over the course of the last 6 months or so that I found super interesting. And I just kind of wanted to try out a bunch of their beers, talk a little bit about kind of what they're doing because I've had some really good experiences. Super interesting, and just wanted to kind of spotlight it and put it on the channel. So first things first, there's three reasons basically why I chose Sixpoint. One, I've never really mentioned it on the channel before, but if you know me, or you will begin to learn super quick, I am a huge fan of Trillium Brewing Company out of Boston, Massachusetts. Probably my favorite brewery for the last 3 to 4 years. And so over the course of the summer, I think it was August 2017, Sixpoint announced that they had hired one of Trillium's former brewers, Eric Bachli. He was specifically responsible for the building of the Canton Brewery for Trillium. So when I heard that, I was like, wow, that's really super cool. Obviously we have a lot of breweries here in the New York, New Jersey area that are doing the New England style IPAs. A lot of breweries are attempting to do the New England style IPAs. Obviously, if you want to look at forebearers of that style, I always kind of consider Trillium to be that brewery that took that style to kind of like that next level, right? So if you think about just kind of Hill Farmstead and the Alchemist kind of being like the originals, Trillium, and then obviously Treehouse kind of took it to where that level is now. And I fell in love with that style. And so when I heard that they were hiring Eric as their chief product officer, I thought that was super cool. I've been drinking Sixpoint's beers since they launched in 2004. I must admit, over the years, obviously, I've drank less and less of them, right? Kind of got through all their portfolio, and every now and then I would pick up, maybe, a couple of beers here and there of theirs, but to be perfectly honest with you, they weren't really kind of in my consideration set anymore. I think the last beer that I picked up from them was, I think, Puff, that they released in the summer of 2016, maybe. Anyway, so that was number one. Hiring of Eric Bachli from Trillium definitely kind of piqued my interest. Second piece, it was an article that I read, and I think it was maybe November 2017. I think it was in Brewbound. It was an interview with Shane Welch, who was actually the owner of Sixpoint. And he made a really interesting comment. And he basically said that 2018 was going to be the year of innovation for Sixpoint. And that his brewery specifically, and I think he was kind of speaking to breweries that have been around for some time now, so veterans within the craft beer world. Again, they launched in 2004. And he kind of mentioned that they were basically fighting for relevancy. And that line really kind of struck with me a bit because it is kind of true. It's now February 6th, 2018, and I'm sure if you're, a craft beer fan, you've probably heard the news over the course of the last, 2 to 3 weeks, that, also another brewery that kind of started around that same time, Green Flash, has actually reduced their workforce by 15%. And has actually pulled out of 33 markets across the U.S. They're only actually going to now be focusing in on 17 markets. So within the last 3 weeks, a brewery that obviously, launched around that same time as Sixpoint, got extremely large in size, now has effectively ended their run as a national brand. Another brewery, Smutty Nose, who was around even before, I believe Smutty Nose launched in 1994. It's recently released, or news came out that they're actually going to be sold at auction, which is kind of wild. So it's interesting. And so I kind of wanted to, focus on Sixpoint, because in reading that article and kind of in reading that interview, what Shane was kind of mentioning is that fighting for relevancy, what were they going to do? What was 2018 going to look like for Sixpoint to kind of continuously kind of innovate themselves, right? And I really kind of respect that just from a business standpoint, because I think Shane kind of ultimately gets and understands that you can't really, just sit back and kind of rest on your laurels, right? I mean, the craft beer industry is kind of moving at such an incredible pace these days that even beers and breweries that were, considered kind of relevant and top of mind and even kind of hyped, just 2 short years ago have kind of been put on the back burner, or even 3 or 4 short years ago. So I kind of really like that mindset. So that was reason number 2. Reason number 3 why I'm focusing in on Sixpoint is because then a month later, I had heard that they were basically launching kind of a beta version of a Sixpoint app. And the purpose is that you were going to be able to purchase, they were going to actually start brewing small batch releases out of the brewery in Red Hook. And through these small batch releases, you could actually purchase the beers on the app itself. So you could actually log in at a specific date onto your app. You can set aside as many 6-packs as you wanted to purchase. I don't think there's any allocation or any particular limits. Purchase the beers and then actually go and pick them up at a designated later date and a certain time. So basically bypassing any lines or any of that tedious nonsense that has become obviously so prevalent now in terms of new beer releases. And I thought that was really cool. I don't think anybody in the marketplace is currently doing that. So it all kind of came together, right? In December, I think it was December 16th, Sixpoint released their first new beers under Eric Bachli. So I knew I had to get in. So I downloaded the app. I went ahead and purchased these 2 beers right here. This is actually Hootie Hoo, which is their first pale ale, and this is Hootie, which is their first IPA under Eric Bachli. They were released on December 16th. I went and set the time that I needed to go and went down to the brewery, drove down to the brewery, and lo and behold, my beers were sitting there waiting for me. And so, got a chance to kind of talk to some folks there pretty briefly. But it was a really cool experience. And so, if you're on Beer Advocate and you go around the message boards, one of the things you'll know is that Shane Welch is basically on Beer Advocate constantly. And he's actually a guy who interacts more with just general fans and folks in the craft beer world via Beer Advocate, more so than I've seen any other brewer, which I thought was kind of cool too. And then come January, they did basically their second month of releases, and they actually released Hootie Hoo again, and then a brand new beer called Party Hat. So what I'm going to do for you now is just literally dive into these 3 beers. Again, these are the first 3 small batch releases released under Eric Bachli, the new chief product officer, former brewer of Trillium, now at Sixpoint. So let's go ahead and dive into these. First one I'm going to do, I'm actually going to go probably from newest to kind of oldest release. So these are the oldest to newest release. So I'm going to go with Hootie Hoo, then Hootie, and then Party Hat. So first things first, Hootie Hoo is an American pale ale coming in at, I wrote this down, 5.4% ABV, so kind of on the lower end in terms of just overall New England style pale ales, which I think is kind of cool. It is brewed with Amarillo, Citra, and Centennial. So artwork on these cans is actually kind of cool. You kind of got that owl going on there, and you got the 6-point star, which is kind of neat. The other thing I actually like about 6-point, which is pretty cool, is sell the beers in 6-packs, right? don't get me wrong. I mean, I dig the 16 ounce, 4 packs and stuff, but it is kind of nice every now and then now having, a 6 pack of 12 ounce cans. All right. So again, Hazy American Pale Ale, 5.4% ABV. Let's go ahead and pop a top on this one, get it into a glass, and then we will do the appearance, we'll do the aroma, we'll do the taste, and then we'll rate it. And then we'll move on to the next 2 beers. All right, so let me go ahead. We'll actually pull out a brand new 6-point taker that I picked up the last time I was down at the brewery, #proper. So let's pop a top on this guy and get it straight into a glass for you. All right, so let's go ahead and just kind of give this one a nice little aggressive pour. That's good. We'll put this guy right back over here. And let's get an appearance. So, yeah. Former Trillium brewer. Haze for days, folks. Unbelievable. Beer comes into a medium plus gold color. This is actually the version that was released in January. So the original Hootie Hoo back in December, I actually remember as being a little bit more straw yellow. So it seems like they maybe kind of dialed in or maybe changed around the recipe or maybe added a little bit of malts to it on the second go around. But beer looks absolutely amazing. Really kind of clean, kind of white head there. I'm going to foam it around a little bit just to get a little bit more. Head is not really dissipating too much. Just maybe about half a finger to a finger of head. A little bit rocky. Everything looks super, super nice. Looks awesome in a glass. Typical New England style IPA. Looks beautiful. All right, so let's go ahead and get an aroma. Wow, big, huge tropical notes coming out of that. Tropical fruits. Oh my God, like an amazing amount of tangerine, orange. All different types of kind of tropical fruits. It's got a little bit of, even on the nose, it's got a little bit of kind of like an acidic note to it. I'm sure that's likely because of, obviously most New England style IPAs have a bit of acidulated malt into the actual recipe itself. So that's that actually coming through. But just really huge, massive notes of tangerine, citrus zest, citrus rinds. Almost kind of has just a kind of like raw citrus aroma to it. Smells awesome. So let's go ahead, give her a taste. Cheers. So, first thing that you get, those tropical fruits, that kind of orange, tangerine notes immediately present themselves directly on the taste. Straight up into the palate, you're just kind of overloaded with those really nice kind of tropical fruit notes. Again, very, very tangerine heavy, at least for me. And a little bit acidic on the back end. Literally no lingering bitterness whatsoever. I think the IBUs on this is maybe 4 or 5 IBUs, and it completely tastes that way. Super juicy, super tropical. The mouthfeel is great. The one thing that's kind of awesome about this beer that I like, I wouldn't necessarily know that it was 5.4% ABV if you didn't tell me. I do remember the initial version of this beer that came out had a slightly kind of lesser mouthfeel, which is something that, truthfully, at that ABV would kind of be appropriate. They've built upon that a little bit, and obviously I think a lot of that has to do with a bit of the color, so maybe just changing around the malt bill slightly. But I really, really kind of dig this January version of Hootie Hoo, simply based on the fact that it has a little bit more body in terms of the overall malt ratio. Obviously, it's still huge in tropical fruit forward, but let me just dive in one more time. Yeah, but the adjustments that they made kind of in the malt bill, at least I think they did, helped in my perspective to kind of balance this beer out a little bit. That's really good. Mouthfeel isn't necessarily super creamy. It's not. It's definitely soft. But I wouldn't necessarily say that it's creamy or even chewy. It's actually even a little bit more light and a little bit more clean tasting, even though it is obviously super, super hazy and obviously turbid, but has a nice bit amount of cleanness to it, which is really great. So first beer down, Hootie Hoo, really, really awesome. Excellent job. So much so that I just finished that one off. So for a rating, Hootie Hoo American Hazy Pale Ale from Sixpoint, I'm going to go and give it a 4.25, man. Like, at that ABV, there's a tremendous amount of aromatics coming out of that nose. And again, maybe some of the adjustments that they had made kind of on the malt bill really did a really great way to kind of balance out that beer and provide just a little bit more stability in terms of that. So straight up, I mean, that is a 4.25 caps beer for me. No question. I would love, 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 love to be able to drink this beer and have multiples. At that ABV and obviously in 12 ounce cans, that's freaking awesome. And I hope they keep on making more. I know they've done it for the small batch releases now 2 months in a row, but that is a winner. Absolutely keep on making that beer, Sixpoint. All right, I'm going to put that guy off to the side. I'm also going to take my hashtag proper Teiku, put it off to the side as well. We'll get a new glass here, and let's go ahead and dive into the second one, which is Hootie, also a New England style IPA. So Hootie is 7.5% ABV. It is brewed with Galaxy, Citra, Mandarina, Bavaria. And yeah, let's go ahead, pop a top on this one. Let's see what she's got. Right into a glass. All right. That guy there. All right, so Hootie. Similar look, right, in terms of Hootie Hoo. Now, actually, that I'm doing them kind of side by side. Yeah, the original Hootie Hoo actually was significantly lighter in color than this version from the January release, but looks really similar in terms of color, medium to medium gold. Looks really gorgeous. Again, full on kind of haze, full on turbidity. But when I do kind of just lean it up a little bit, you can get some clean notes off of it, which is kind of cool. So, at the end of the day, if you remember kind of Trillium beers, or if you've had Trillium beers in the past where they're just like, pure like OJ. This is more kind of pineapple juice, right? Has a little bit more of a cleanliness to it overall, even though it is obviously super, super hazy. But looks great. Head is kind of dissipating. Get a little alcohol lacing in there. Looks really great. Let's go ahead, get ourselves an aroma on Hootie. So, completely different. Nose is definitely more pineapple forward. Pineapple, mango, even getting a little bit of kind of berry notes that I get often from Galaxy beers or beers that have Galaxy in it. There's kind of an underlying sweetness there in the nose, which is really interesting. It's like a kind of a sweet kind of berry. I've mentioned it before. It's kind of got like a little bit of that bubblegum thing going on. Oh, man, it smells really, really good. So, yeah, I mean, these beers were actually released. So that one was from January. This one is actually from the December release. So this was released on December 16th. It is now February 6th, man. And, like, there is no drop-off on that nose whatsoever. That's pretty awesome. So cheers for, like, the stability of the beer. Sometimes, obviously, New England IPAs, not so much anymore, but like a couple of years ago, there was always a challenge with like, the stability of them, right? And a lot of these kind of like super, hazy, turbid beers, like literally needed to be drank in like the first couple of weeks. Not so much anymore. I think that a lot of breweries and a lot of brewers have kind of gotten down that style really, really well, where the beers really hold up. I mean, you're basically looking at a month and a half old beer, almost close to a 2-month-old beer, and you'd never know it. God, it really, really smells awesome. So let's go ahead and dive in and give ourselves a taste. Cheers. Oh, man. All right, so one thing that's super kind of pronounced is a bit more of the, like that bubble gum is kind of coming out, but really kind of dominated in terms of pineapple, mango, definitely getting a little bit of that kind of berry from the Galaxy. There's another thing going on here that I'm probably going to do a really horrible job at describing, but the best way I can describe it is overripe citrus. And I want to put this in the right way because do you know when you kind of like have a piece of like citrus fruit and it basically starts kind of breaking down, right? It's a bit overripe where it almost begins to kind of like start rotting away. And that's a terrible descriptor because I don't mean the term rotten, but you know, when a piece of citrus or a piece of fruit begins to kind of break down, it has a bit of that kind of deep, almost muddled fruit kind of aroma and taste. I'm getting that out of this beer, which is really interesting. So, I mean, it is just kind of an overall kind of really deep, overripe citrus that I'm getting out of this. But really, really well done. I was going to kind of compare the two, and obviously I do want to just preface it by saying that is a can from December, that is a can from January, so there's going to be some, there's obviously going to be obviously some changes there. What I would say is it's slightly less. I think the aromatics are still there, right? But in terms of just the overall kind of taste, this is slightly more muted than maybe say the Hootie Hoo is. Again, that could be just simply based on the fact that one can is 1 month fresher than the other one. I mean, obviously. But off camera, I actually did have this beer when it was first released, and I do kind of remember it being just slightly muted there a little bit, not nearly as flavorful as the original Hootie Hoo or even this second version of Hootie Hoo. So overall, let's go ahead and give her a rating. The aromatics on it are great, right? It's brewed really, really well. You can obviously tell that, this is a excellently well-made beer. For an overall rating, I'd probably give it a 4. Because there does tend to be just slightly bit of muted flavors, I think that it does have the ability to just be that much more pungent if they wanted it to be. But it's a really fantastic beer. It's really super drinkable at 7.5% ABV. You get literally no alcohol off this. So, again, goes into that dangerous territory. But, overall, honestly, I would be more than comfortable giving this a 4 caps. It's a really, really well-made beer, just slightly short of exceptional. All right, so finish off with one more sip. All right, I'm going to put that one off to the side as well. We're going to dive into our final beer of this extremely, extremely wrong Brewery Spotlight, and that is Party Hat. So this is actually their latest small batch release. Party Hat is a 0 IBU New England style IPA, and Party Hat is brewed with 100% Galaxy. So I've mentioned in videos before that I'm a super big Galaxy whore and all things Southern Hemisphere. So had to obviously grab this one. Let's go ahead and pop a top on it. Go through the drill. All right, we'll get this right into a glass. Make sure we get a good look at it. All right. Let's get back here. All right. So, appearance. Very, very similar. Little bit more carbonation to this one, actually. I'm actually getting some nice kind of bubbles there. Head is a little bit more pronounced than the Hootie, and maybe even to some degree the Hootie Hoo was. Rocky kind of head, providing a little bit of lacing. This beer is actually in the middle ABV-wise in regards to the others, so 6.6% ABV. But again, the color is really kind of super similar looking, right? So, medium to medium gold. Again, looks gorgeous in the glass. And again, one other thing that I want to mention is the same thing with this beer is obviously New England style, right? Super, super hazy, haze for days. But there are some clean notes to it as well, right? You do get a little bit of cleanness as you kind of see around, right? Obviously, it is kind of like full-on haze, but again, not that kind of like OJ, right? Again, more pineapple juice. All right, so we're going to dive my nose into it. Let's get ourselves an aroma on the Party Hat. Wow. And now, so that's the amazing thing, right? You got 3 beers, all that look very similar, right? And obviously they have different, hop bills to them. There is some kind of crossover between a few of them. But at 100% Galaxy, I mean, this is completely, completely different than those other 2 beers. So first aroma that I get there is an earthy citrus fruit dankness that comes out. For lack of a better term, it's borderline musky, if that makes sense. Like earthy, musky, and kind of dirty in like a really, really good way. Because it's 100% Galaxy, obviously I'm also getting that berry note, a little bit of that bubblegum again. But really there's just kind of like this underlying, or kind of, excuse me, not underlying, a bit more of an overt kind of muskiness to this beer that I really, really like. That it makes the nose kind of super unique and really stands out between the other two. All right, let's go ahead and dive into the taste. Third time's the charm. Cheers, everyone. Interesting. So 0 IBUs, right? No bitterness whatsoever, obviously. That is straight fruit juice as a result. Again, I'm getting a lot of that kind of like berry note once I taste it. Pineapple, getting a little mango now in the back of the palate. Really interesting, but you know what? There's like almost like a delayed kind of... Yeah, there we go. Could be that I'm kind of just going, I'm on my third beer, so I'm going one after another and another. So obviously things are kind of mixing together. There we go. Okay, so yeah, really, really big kind of pineapple forward. Mango, nice amount of peach in this one too. So I think the peach and maybe a little bit of stone fruit comes out of the party hat more so than obviously the other two. And again, similar to kind of like the aroma, you do have that kind of musky, kind of earthy notes, which kind of provides a really kind of cool canvas on the back end. So again, you're getting a lot of heavy pineapple, pineapple, peach, kind of stone fruit flavors up front, and then it's kind of enveloped all the way in on the back end with a little bit of that earthiness, a little bit of muskiness, and even like a little bit of borderline spiciness too. Really, really awesome beer. Go in for one last sip. Yeah. So let's go ahead and give her a rating. That's going to be really, really tough. So I'm just going to kind of bring these back out one more time so we can kind of just go one by one. So the way that I'm kind of looking at them is 4.25 for Hootie Hoo. 4 caps for Hootie. Party Hat is tough, though. It makes it significantly different. I'm definitely leaning towards... It's definitely a 4.25. But I'm kind of struggling a little bit back and forth to understand which one is my absolute favorite. I do want to actually just pour this one really, really quickly one more time. Yeah, they're such different beers. I'm going to bump up Party Hat a little bit. I'm going to go up. I usually don't like to kind of get into these smaller increments. I usually like to keep them, in 0.25 increments. I'm going to bump this up right now. I'm actually going to bump it up to a 4.35. My opinion, first 3 beers that are released from Eric Bachli as the new Chief Product Officer, head brewer at Sixpoint. I think Party Hat's probably the best. 4.35 from the Craftavore Tastes on Party Hat. So, all right. I hope you stuck with me throughout this thing. I told you it was going to be long. I do appreciate it if you did stick around. If you didn't, I apologize. We're only going to be doing these kind of brewery spotlight videos not too infrequently, but I thought this was going to be a really cool one to be able to do. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you keep on coming back and watching more videos as I continue to drink, review, rate, and repeat.